Hey, what's going on, guys? Alaska here, coming at you with another Pokemon Go video. As you can see, my Bulbasaur having a great night with his dances with leaves. So something that I'm going to be going over with this video today is I'm going to be going over Pokemon IV scores and what those mean and how they can affect your gameplay and basically how to understand and use them. So IV scores are basically the stats that every Pokemon has when they're born. And what I mean by that is when you catch a Pokemon, so if I catch this Weedle, it has a basic amount of stats from the time I capture it that are different than this Weedle. And I'm going to show you the difference of a few of the Pokemon that I have with their IV scores. So I have a bunch of Growlithe. I got all these when I went downtown last time, or the last time I went downtown. So the IV score is a percentage from 0 to 100, and the higher IV score, the better your Pokemon is. So this one only has an IV score of 20, which isn't all that great, but it'll set a good example. So the next one over has a 49% IV score, and I only have one of the two stats. It'll usually give you a it'll give you two stats, so it'll be like 49% to 38% or something like that. It's just based off of what comes up. So the other stats that go with it is it's stats from 0 to 15 points, and those points are based off of the basic stats of your Pokemon. The way that you do IV scores is you can go to an IV calculator. The one I use is Poke Assistant. It's very good, it's very accurate, and it'll give you a lot of information that you need. So I would go to Poke Assistant and type in Growlithe. And then you type in its combat power, which is 336, how much health it has, which is 52, and then how much dust it costs to power it up. So this one costs 1,000 dust to power up. And then if you've spent dust on it or not. So have you powered it up or haven't you? So I haven't done it with this one, so when I calculate it, it's going to say 48.9, so I rounded it up to 49%, and then that's the maximum. The average is 46.7%, and the minimum is 44.4%. And the max level reading that it saw it at was level 10. Now, my character's level 15, so I can go down and there's a level bar that allows me to change what level it pops up as. So if I were to max this Growlithe out at my level, I could see better which type of Growlithe I had. Because it gives you the worst possible, which would be 474%, which would be that 44.4% for a Growlithe. Or if you have the best possible, it would be 591 combat power. And that's if you have the 48.9% Growlithe. So the other stat, or the other way that these work, is when you're on the stat table with the 0 to 15s, each stat will have a different number. Unless you have a really high one where they're all 15, but that's if you have 100%, which is very rare, and usually doesn't happen. So for the highest percentage, attack would be 0, which is unfortunate, but that's kind of how it works. Defense would be 8, and then stamina would be 14. So that just means that he'd be able to attack really fast. But his attacks wouldn't be very strong. So as you get higher, like here's a 53 Growlithe, so this one's a little better. It's got a bigger arc. The arc is also the other thing that you want to look at when you're looking at your IV scores. You can kind of spot out what they'll be after you've used them for a while. You'll be able to get a gist of what's what. So we're going to go down here and check out some more IV scores. I did my Voltorbs earlier. These are more of the higher ones, but it also shows you the distance that it can be. So this Voltorb is 93% to 51%, and that's a very high middle area and a lot of options that it could be. Now, there's probably 12 different options that would be for this Voltorb from 93% to 51%. The way you narrow that down is you power it up. And as you power it up, you get a more accurate reading as to what percentage it is. So if I were to max out this Voltorb, the percentage would go more to what would be accurate for this Voltorb specifically. And then here you have a 8440, same kind of deal. Would need to power it up a little bit more to see where it was at. It would get more accurate as I went. But that's what I did for the Voltorbs. I caught a Lickitung the other day at after I got off work, which is awesome because I don't have a Lickitung yet. So that was fun to catch. So I have a bunch of Dratinis from the last time I went downtown, including a Dragonair, which is awesome. That saves you 25 Dratini candies, which are very hard to get. One of the spots that I go to, usually when I'm doing videos downtown, a lot of Dratinis will spawn in on that bridge. And if you know which bridge I'm talking about, it's one of the bridges on the canal that has 4 Pokestops next to it. Well, that's where I got most of these. So, again, with the IV scores, the IV scores for this one was 5342. The reason it's so accurate is because it's almost fully powered up. I didn't power it up yet, however. I caught it that way. So that's just one of those things where once you power it up finally, you can see a more accurate reading. Some of the Dratinis, or some Pokemon in general, when you check their IV score, it will come up as one number. So it'll say, like for this one, it said 64% for each number, for the maximum, the average, and the minimum. So you know for sure that when you power that Pokemon up, it's going to have a 64% IV rating. One of the other things that IV ratings determine is what moveset you're going to have when you evolve that Pokemon. So the higher your IV score, the better your moveset will be. So like if you have a Magikarp and it has a low IV score, when you evolve it into a Gyarados, it'll turn into a Gyarados that has like Twister. But if you have a Magikarp that has high IV level, it'll turn into something with like Hyper Beam and stuff like that. So as the comparison as to the moves, are those 1-bar moves or the 2-bar moves. So something that I have all the way down at the bottom is this EV right here. And this is a good example of one of the best things that you can get. Now, I'm not entirely sure if it's because I haven't powered this Dratini up at all, but its IV score is 100% to 93%, which even if it did fluctuate in between that, it's only 7% away from each other. So I'm hoping that if I power this Dratini up, eventually it'll be one of the highest Dratinis you can get. And the other thing about Poke Assistant, the site that I use for checking IV scores, is you can put in your level, and then it'll show you what the combat power is, just like I said earlier. But the other thing it'll do is it will show you the evolution. It'll show you the evolution and the maximum combat power that your Pokemon at that evolution will be. So with this Dratini, at Dragonite level, it said that it would have 3,525, which is the cap for Dragonites. And I think the lowest one in that was 3,450, I want to say. I'll put it in real quick. So we'll go Dratini, 43 combat power, 16 HP, and 63 health is very high for something with such low combat power. That's one of the reasons that this Dratini is such a high Pokemon on the charts. So at max level, which is level 40, so the worst case scenario, my Dragonite would be 3,000 combat power, but the worst, so there's 4 stats that it'll give you. It gives you the worst possible, your worst, your best, and your best possible. So for the worst possible, it would be 3,000 combat power, which is still amazing. And then the worst I could get is 3,501 and 3 less in defense. All the other stats are identical. Attack is 265, defense is 224 instead of 227, and then stamina is 197. And then I would just have 24 less combat power than the best or the best possible. So my best option or my best possible option would both be identical, which is ridiculous. So I'm really excited to see what this Dratini will turn into. Hopefully that percentage will stay up there at that 193%, because even if it was the 93 and it was the worst possible out of this set, I would still be happy with it. But that's a basic overlay of IV scores, and I hope that I was able to inform you a little more on IV scores. The premise of it is that it shows you what you want to spend your dust on, because with dust, it's one of those things where, yes, I have this Growlithe and it's 478 combat power, which is my highest Growlithe, so that'd be great for upgrading it and for evolving it, because why would I want to spend candy upgrading something that's a lot lower CP? Well, this has a 20 IV score, and then this one right here, it's only 196, but it has a higher IV score. So it helps you decide what you want to put your dust into, because it's a lot of dust to power stuff up, and it's a lot of candies to power stuff up. So for the rarer Pokemon like Growlithe and Dratini, you kind of want to wait until you hit a certain level before you start spending dust. Like with both of my accounts, I've decided to wait until level 30 to actually start spending dust. Not necessarily start evolving stuff, but definitely going to wait until then to spend dust, because at level 30, that is the combat power cap for Pokemon that spawn in the wild. So, in my opinion, it's best to save your dust until that point, because then you can make sure that you're catching the highest possible things that you can catch out in the wild. But again, thank you for watching the video, and I hope you liked it. Like and subscribe if you have any ideas for Pokemon that I should try and find out and catch, or that I should evolve, or any tutorial videos that you guys are looking that you want more information about. Just write in the comments down below, and I will see what I can do. So thank you for dropping in and watching my video, and I'll see you guys next time.